Good evening, and welcome to our Blue Holidays Vesper service. I don't need any introduction, you know who I am, but welcome, everyone. These Blue Holiday services are designed to hold the more melancholy emotions or the immediate grief that you might be feeling during the holidays. Please do take a moment to turn your phones and other devices to their most quiet setting. I need to give a big thank you to my colleague, the Reverend Caitlin Cotter-Coylberg, who serves as the Assistant Minister of Spiritual Growth at the UU congregation in Silver Spring, Maryland. Much of this liturgy is her curation. I invite you to take a deep breath in and out, or a comfortable breath in and out. Take a few more breaths over the next few moments. Begin to let go of what you need to let go of, to be more fully present to yourself, one another, and the sacred in this time and place. I begin this evening with these words. As frozen earth holds the determined seed, this sacred space holds our weariness, our worry, our laughter, and our celebration. Let us bring seed and soul into the light of thought, the warmth of community, and the hope of love. Let us see together, hear together, and love together. Let us now sing Abide With Me. It's hymn number 101. You are invited to remain seated or to rise, depending on your preference. I offer you now this litany of comfort written by Deborah Falk. I invite you to speak the response that is printed on your order of service when you hear "This season brings forth many feelings." You will join with me as you wish in saying, "We find comfort in naming these feelings. We find some peace in being together." All around us are bright lights and merry messages, yet in our heart not all is joyful. There is grief with the loss of relationships, those we love no longer with us because of death, those we have loved who are estranged from us, those we love yet experience a diminishment of intimacy. There is grief with the loss and change of relationship, grief bittersweet, for it is a consequence of the presence of love. This season brings forth many feelings. We find comfort in naming these feelings. We find some peace in being together. All around us are bright lights and merry messages, yet our heart is not all joyful. There may be pain in our bodies, physical pain as a natural outcome of aging, physical pain that presents itself in illness, pain in the body that forces us to change and imposes limitations, pain, bittersweet, for physical experience includes both pain and pleasure, and this season brings forth many feelings. We find comfort in naming these feelings. We find some peace in being together. All around us are bright lights and merry messages, yet in our hearts not all is joyful. There may be anger and regret with the memories we hold, anger with past experiences of hurt or abuse, regret of our own actions that may have caused hurt to others, anger that life has not turned out as we imagined, regret for what we have said or done, anger and regret bittersweet in presenting the possibility for healing and forgiveness. This season brings forth many feelings. We find comfort in naming these feelings. We find some peace in being together. All around us are those bright lights and merry messages, yet in our heart not all is joyful. There may be uncertainty that accompanies transition and change, uncertainty of what the future may bring with changes, uncertainty of direction or purpose after retirement or change of vocation, uncertainty when changing residence by choice or necessity, uncertainty bittersweet, for change, a constant in life, lets us know we are alive and change along with. This season brings forth many feelings. We find comfort in naming these feelings. We find some peace in being together. Those bright lights and merry messages are all around us, yet in our hearts, not all is joyful. There may be a sense of hopelessness in the face of so much violence and suffering, hopelessness with attempts to heal our aching world and ourselves, hopelessness in witnessing what we have not yet managed to accomplish, hopelessness, bittersweet, for its longing reminds us of our capacity for hope and the human spirit's tenacity and courage that rests deep within us. As this season brings forth many feelings, we find comfort in naming these feelings. We find some peace in being together. In our hearts, not all is joyful. There is loneliness. Loneliness when we find ourselves alone after being long partnered, loneliness when we are separated from loved ones, loneliness when we move to a new community and struggle to find our way, loneliness that never seems filled even with good company, loneliness that is an ever-present aching in the heart, loneliness, bittersweet, for it is felt only when we have known connectedness, and this season brings forth many feelings. We find comfort in naming these feelings. We find some peace in being together. All around us are bright lights and merry messages, yet in our heart not all is joyful. We know grief and pain. We know anger and regret. We know hopelessness and loneliness. We know all these feelings. We name them. We live them, for such is the human experience. That love presents us with the possibility of being hurt, with the grief of loss. That connection holds the power of loneliness and uncertainty. That forgiveness can begin to heal anger and regret. That being alive and you being here is a courageous act in which we engage all of our emotions. This season brings forth many feelings. We find comfort in naming these feelings. We find some peace in being together. This evening, I would like to invite you into a ritual of our shared grief, of being present with each other's sorrows. As you are so moved, I invite you to come forward and light a candle, and then to add some salt to this bowl of water so that this bowl and the water in it becomes as salty as our tears. The water in our bowl tonight is what we collected at the water ceremony at the beginning of our church year. It has blessed the ground where loved ones have been buried. It blessed new children in our midst. And now it, the water, and our community holds the salt of our tears. If you are lighting a candle, you can light whichever ones. I was going to say start at the back so we don't have any fire emergencies, but you can light whichever candles and however many candles you wish to light. So let us light candles and add some salt to our water. Let us take a moment to return our focus to our breath as we join in a moment of quiet together, grateful for the sounds of all life around us. All around us are the sights and sounds and smells of folks preparing for Christmas or Hanukkah or winter solstice or 1,000 other festive moments. O Spirit, named and unnamed, we hear the laughter of parties, the shouts of excited children, the music in every store. We smell the bread and the cookies, see the decorations going up everywhere. But deep within us, we carry our pain. Our grief walks with us with every step we take, rolls with us through every doorway. Loneliness is a shawl we drape out over our shoulders on empty nights. So in this time, when every night stretches into eternity, we come to you. We come to our community bringing our gifts, not gold, frankincense, and myrrh, not oil for lamps or chocolate coins, but the grief that is the empty space in the closet filled with memories, the loss that is a sore which never heals, the bitterness that tastes like 2-day-old coffee. We have come from different backgrounds, different families, different faith traditions, but we have all lived in the far country of despair, wandered the land of shame, built our lives in those neighborhoods peopled by empty dreams, in a season when so many people don't have enough hours in a day to get their lists checked off, their cards mailed, their presents wrapped, some of us all the time in the world, to remember the loss that has stolen the joy of the season, to grieve over a job, a dream, a loved one we have lost, to sit in the shadows of our homes, too weary to turn on the lights, to wander the streets lit by decorations on all the houses, but not by the light of the world. Our fear of the future, our remembrance of the past, our pain which is difficult to bear and harder to release, our emptiness which cannot be filled with platitudes, our hands which cannot hold the ones we wish to embrace, all make this a season of long nights. So be with us in our loneliness, in our longing, in our loss, and in our lives. May it be so. I offer this poem. That night, I thought I could not go any closer to grief without dying. I went closer, and I did not die. Surely God had his hand in this, as well as friends. Still I was bent, and my laughter, as the poet said, was nowhere to be found. Then said my friend Daniel, brave even among lions, Daniel said, it's not the weight you carry, but how you carry it. Books, bricks, grief. It's all in the way you embrace it, balance it, carry it, when you cannot and would not put it down. So I went practicing. Have you noticed? Have you heard the laughter that comes now and again out of my startled mouth? How I linger to admire the things of this world that are kind and maybe also troubled. Roses in the wind, the sea geese on the steep waves, a love to which there is no reply. What I know about grief is that it is proof of love or a desire of love that is not there. What I know about grief is that our grief does not, in fact, shrink, but rather our lives grow around the grief. I like what Mary Oliver's friend Daniel says about grief. It's not the weight you carry, but how you carry it. Books, bricks, grief, it's all in the way you embrace it, balance it, carry it, when you cannot and would not put it down. And while the most common form of grief, the one that comes to our lips when we think about grief, is the loss of a loved one due to death, there are so many other griefs that are uncountable. Complex grief, grief as our bodies age and we cannot do what we once did, grief for people who are still living, who we are no longer in relationship with. This night we honor those griefs as well. When we are mourning, I think there is some desire, some seeking to be made whole. This does not occur by the divine, but rather we are saved, we are made whole, we are healed by our communities. When we are grieving and mourning the loss of anyone that we have loved who has died, or any of those other griefs, the ones that you don't get cards in the mail for. The natural tendency is to turn away from others, to isolate, to retreat, to turn away from that grief. Instead, turn to others. As humans, we are made to be together, to share stories, and to support each other when times are tough. We depend in times of grief on the generosity, the support, and love of our communities and our congregations. It is good that you are here. For our second ritual, I invite you to come forward and to bless yourself and each other with the salt water, honoring your grief and your journey through this holiday season. I invite you to come forward, dip a finger into the bowl of water, and then place a drop of that water on the hand of the person behind you, saying, I honor your grief and your joy. I honor your grief and your joy. We will now sing one final hymn. It is number 232, "The Hills Are Bare at Bethlehem." Again, you are invited to remain seated or to stand as you feel moved. I end with these words written by Margaret Krell. The poem is titled "Constancy." It happened again this year, on the shortest day, when the temperature rose above freezing and the adhering snow made everything Christmas. 2 pussy willow catkins slipped through their husks, but there were just those teasing few. The next weeks saw glimpses of more light, and by March, enough until finally this evening, I saw what looked like strung pearls lighting the willow's branches, and I remembered. It is in the days after this doubling of light begins that catkins must emerge, seeming to know what we should know too, that it takes a constant light rather than what dazzles us on a single blinding winter's day to push aside what holds us contained. As our service draws to a close and as Dean plays more beautiful, beautiful music, I invite you to leave whenever you feel comfortable.